everybody. This is Dallas with Flock's Nest Sports Podcast. As always, wearing number 9 for Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens. As a Ravens fan, I bring the flock. Today, my first game preview video, so I am by myself. Hopefully this works out and y'all like this. It's a little weird not having Brendan here with me, kind of talk things out with, but that's okay. Maybe now he can't bother me either, so... He does have to edit this video, though, so we can't say anything too mean. This week I'm going to be talking the Ravens' next game, which is at the Cleveland Browns at 10 a.m. Pacific time, so 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to break down injury report, what I kind of expect to see from both teams, how I kind of project all 4 or even 6 units, if you want to talk special teams, to go. I will at the end kind of give a projected score for the game. Nothing on the line, obviously. I'm not a betting expert or anything like that, so just keep that in mind. We will kick off with the Ravens injury report. Marlon Humphrey did not practice all week. He was on the field Friday, but on a side field working by himself. He didn't participate with the team, so that's kind of positive news. Zay Flowers was a full participant. He did miss 2 days with the ankle. We all kind of saw him go down against Tampa last week. He did re-enter the field, but he didn't have another target or catch after that. So he was a full participant in practice, which is really great to see. Keaton Mitchell came off IR and has been practicing, but he's still not expected to play. It's probably going to be a couple weeks, get him back into practice, get him back into the flow of things. This is kind of what the team expected, having him late in the season and hopefully ready for a playoff run. They weren't really anticipating having him for the first 2 to 3 quarters of the season. Jalen Armour-Davis was pulled off of IR, has been practicing. Not sure if he'll play this week. Both TJ Tampa and Humphrey didn't practice this week. I do think there's a shot, if Humphrey is out, that TJ will be elevated to an active roster. With that being said, I do think Rashid Ali will probably hit IR to make a roster spot for Jalen Armour-Davis. So just kind of keeping an eye on that. And then, so that's pretty much it for the Ravens injury report. There were some others that kind of popped up on Wednesday, some early things. Everyone seems to be back at it, pretty healthy. I think the only real name we're waiting on is Marlon, and I do think Marlon will determine what Jalen does. He may take a couple snaps, even if he doesn't play the full game, just to kind of get some live reps back at it. I do think Arthur Millette is still expected not to play, but we'll see. He wasn't on the injury report. No one really talked about him this week. I'm not sure if he'll make his debut for the season this week or not. I think that's another one that would be a good name to kind of see back, especially with Humphrey out. As for the Bucs side of things, they do have a little bit more going on their injury report. I'm not going to get too much into it. I think the biggest piece of news is Stefanski did name Jameis Winston the starter for this week, even though Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, is how I'll refer to him through the rest of the video, it's how most people refer to him, was a full participant in practice both Wednesday and Friday. I think they're still just kind of letting that hand heal up. So this is also a division game. I think they want someone with a little bit more experience and a little bit more knowledge to play, as they do want to get back in the race for the AFC North. So they are expecting Jameis to play. And then Deshaun is, of course, out for the season. We won't see him again at all. They got Nick Chubb back last week, so, with a power run team and Nick Chubb and Jameis at the helm, I do expect to see a better offense than they've had in the last couple weeks. but we will get more into that when we talk the Brown side of things. So we'll start with the Ravens, of course, because why wouldn't we? Offensively, they have been producing at an extremely high level. Obviously, last week, Lamar had 5 passing touchdowns, only 5 incompletions. They have won AFC Player of the Week, 4 of which have been offensive, Lamar being the newest one. So that's really great. He's throwing the ball really well. I know the conversation in the media has been, is he throwing it better than ever? I don't think so. When you look at his passer ratings, it's always been pretty high. The thing I think we're seeing is we're throwing the ball on a more consistent level. We're pairing it with the run way more than we have in the past. I think we're seeing more of a 60-40 kind of offense rather than an 80-20 run heavy. So it's been great to see. This is who Monken wanted them to be. This is why Harbaugh brought Monken in. This was the offense they wanted to run. This was the offense they believed they could run. And for all of the concerns or problems they've had in the playoffs, seeing them execute this kind of offense now at an extremely high level does give me faith, as long as they can maintain it. So, yeah, just throwing the ball really well. They are the Baltimore Ravens, so they are, of course, running the ball extremely well. They are still kind of a running back by committee. I know last week against Tampa, a lot of people were concerned that why aren't they using Derrick Henry so much? And then we saw him ramp up in the fourth quarter. I do think that's kind of the plan for Henry. Harbaugh said at the beginning of the season, we don't want to give him the ball 30 times. Henry is still very talented. He's still very fit, very active, but he is 30 years old. So I think the goal is to kind of use Henry in the fourth quarter when defenses are a little more tired, a little more sluggish, and he can just kind of run guys over. Because as we see, that downhill power running, quarters 1 through 3, he kind of averages 2-3 yards unless he really gets a breakaway. And with that dynamic, Justice Hill tends to be a little bit more effective. He's kind of better at the juking or going around the line of scrimmage rather than through it. So statistically, he just kind of has he has more success early on. So I do expect to see that. Obviously, Lamar's going to continue to run it. I don't think anything is going to take him away from that. So that's just kind of one of the benefits. I do also think it could play a role this week facing Myles Garrett. So I expect to see a heavy run team with or without Rashid Ali and with or without Keaton Mitchell. While both of those will be great additions when they can be. Right now, it's those 3, but they're doing really well. And then we're seeing Zay do a lot of, the chip passes in the back field and then running for it. And he's doing really well with his elusiveness, his ability to stop on the dime really well, and evade players. So that's great to see. And I just think we're going to see, I don't think we're going to see any real changes to the offense. It's just improving on what they have done. Obviously, the O-line is really going to be tested this week. They've got to work on the penalties, those pre-snap penalties, the illegal formations, the illegal man downfields, the false starts, all of it. They've really got to kind of tighten the belt on that. During training camp, Monken was really emphasizing those things. So we got to get back to it. Some games they do really well, some games not so much. With Myles Garrett on the other side, they've got to be locked in. I think they will continue the same lineup we've seen the last couple weeks, with Rosengarten, Falele, Makari, Stanley, and Linderbaum. I don't expect to see Voorhees outside of maybe some rotational things to get guys some rest. Voorhees, I'm really hopeful he's going to work out, and I'm hopeful that he'll be able to get going and really be an effective part of this line. But right now, he's just not holding up in the protection aspect. So I think what we have seen is what we're going to continue to see for the time being, especially as long as everyone stays healthy. Stanley has been really healthy this year, and that's been a main concern for him. That was their main concern going into this season. It's why they didn't give him a contract extension. So to see him continue to be healthy and playing at the level he is, and he's clearly, him and Linderbaum are clearly mentoring these guys. If they can just kind of fix the penalties, I think that unit will be working really well. They are going to be tested though. Myles Garrett obviously is an elite pass rusher, so you know, if they can hold up against him, I think I'll be feeling better moving forward. But this was the defense I wanted to see. Obviously Tampa's got through a little bit, but some of those I kind of blame on Lamar. It's sometimes as quarterbacks you miss protections, you miss call protections. It happens. When someone can kind of come through clearly to him, that's busted coverage on Lamar's end. We're not seeing anybody really shake anybody off right now, so we'll see if that continues. And then the pass catchers have just been really great this year. Seeing that deep ball with him and Bateman, it's really showing the connection he's built and he's building. I know last year he had a couple of those throws and they were overthrown, just missing him. They hadn't had the time to really reestablish their understanding of each other. To see two of them last week against Tampa, I expect to see it again this week. If you watch Ravens episodes of Wired, they showed the meeting in the wide receiver room of basically building this play and explaining it to Bateman, and then seeing it executed on Sunday was really great. There were a lot of questions about Bateman being a first-round pick. He's had injury problems. He just hasn't gotten going the way I think the Ravens wanted him to, but they did extend him in the offseason. So they knew he had this potential. He just needed the time and to be healthy. And so to see him and Lamar having that has been great. I do expect to see it again this game. The biggest thing, Lamar's never really had a number one wide receiver, right? It's always kind of been Mark Andrews and then wide receiver by committee. So to see him having all of these targets available to him and operating at a really well level, he's targeted Kohler in every game. Isaiah's making catches in every game. To see Mark Andrews kind of get back to what he and Lamar have been with the 2 touchdowns last week. Zay is having a career year. He's also having a career year for the Ravens under not a career, but a season high for wide receivers under Lamar's tenure. So that's been really awesome. I expect the passing game to be really on point this week with the Browns defense operating at the level it has been. Obviously, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk Browns, but offensively, I kind of expect to see a similar game plan to what they had against Tampa, throwing the ball really well, targeting all of these different guys. I do expect to see a little bit more in the pass game, just because the Browns secondary isn't elite, and the run game with Myles Garrett can be a little harder to get going. But we'll see. Should be a good game. Yeah, should be a good game offensively. With everybody going, everybody kind of operating at high levels. Hope to see Zay out there. He's a Raven. He's tough. I was pretty scared last week when he went down with the ankle. But he has been at practice. I do expect him to play Sunday. We'll see how active he is in the game, though. I am going to pivot. I'm going to go to special teams before we talk defense, just because there's just a single note there. Obviously, Tucker has been playing really well. I think he's kind of fixed the yips he had. He hit the 52-yarder against Tampa. Straight shot. It didn't even curve after it went through, because I noticed that the week before against Cincy that, yeah, it went through, but you could see if it had been any longer, it was starting to fall to the left. I think we've kind of fixed whatever technique problems he was having, whatever mental problems he was having. I think he's back to being Tucker. The Ravens are the only team to allow an onside kick this year. And not just one, but two. They had the one against Dallas, and obviously the one against Tampa last week. Chris Horton, the special teams coordinator, did say this week in a post-practice interview that they are changing up the hands team for onside kicks because they do know this is a problem. I kind of said it in the week, just our normal podcast video, that it's like they're letting the first one happen and then going, okay, this is what we need to do differently, and not allowing the second. And they just want to make sure they're not allowing any, keeping the defense out there like that. You're likely to give up points. They're tired. It makes back-to-back drives. It's hard to maintain. And that is a focal point for the Ravens right now, is not letting teams come back into games. So we'll see if they make any changes. Obviously, I expect if the Browns get behind to attempt an onside kick. So want to see what those changes look like and if it's effective. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball. I keep doing that. The Ravens do rank first in run defense, but they did give up quite a few against Tampa, I believe in the 150-ish range. Not gonna work. With Nick Chubb back, that's what this team is built on. It's built on a run game and a power defense. They got to get that cleaned up. Zach Orr did comment this week at the podium. He stated it was a communication error. That's kind of been the name of the game for the Ravens defense this season, is just communication errors. You're seeing it in penalties. You're seeing it in busted coverage in the secondary. You're seeing it in the run defense. They've got to get that tightened up, whether it's changing how they're communicating the plays, if it's how they get out there, how quickly the play comes in, I'm not sure. Zach Orr is young. He is a first-time defensive coordinator. I do expect there to be improvements. This team is a family. I think if he needs help or if he needs advice, there are plenty of people he can go to. I honestly think he could still call McDonald and ask him, like, hey, what do I do here? How do we get this fixed? He's a smart guy. He is going to get it figured out. I do believe he's going to get it locked in. But this is a division game. And with the Ravens and the Steelers currently battling for first in the North, and we don't know if the Bengals will come back in it, I'm not really worried about the Browns in terms of the overall division. But at the end of the year, division matchups could play a big part in terms of rankings and standings and all of those things. And it is a big deal, so we want to get those cleaned up now. So definitely looking for improvement on that side of things. Just on the communication, I think the guys are playing well. They're playing hard. Obviously, I think they'll be better with Humphrey in the game. He's averaging 1 takeaway a game. He had the interception against Cincy, 2 against Tampa. He's been playing really well. I want to see that continue. I want to see the takeaways continue, of course. They have done well in the turnover battle just overall. Interceptions, takeaways, forced fumbles. Kyle Van Noy had the one against Buffalo. They're doing really well in that regard. I just want to see them increase their pressure packages a little bit. Van Noy was playing really hard, really well at the beginning of the year. I think they kind of dialed back the pressure a little bit against Cincy, and we didn't see it a whole ton against Tampa. They're bringing it on the 3rd and longs. I'd like to see it a little bit more in the second down game to ensure a third and long. Um, Van Noy's playing at a really well level. Owe has been playing really well. I don't think they're missing Clowney as much as I thought they might. So I just want to see it continue. I want to see it ramped up a little bit. I don't think that one goes back to communication so much, but rather just the game plan. So hopefully they can get that dialed in a little bit, get Kyle Van Noy back to going, get Trenton Simpson going. He's had, I think, 2 sacks this season. Let's let him go off. Let's have those games. I don't really expect to see the Ravens make a ton of moves before the trade deadline. I know that's coming up. I know some names have been thrown around. Clowney's name has been thrown around. I really don't expect to see that happen with the names on IR or the names that just haven't been able to participate yet. They're still expecting those on both sides of the ball. With Keaton and Ali, Jalen Armour-Davis, Arthur Millette. They've had plenty of guys that I think they're still sitting there going, once they're available, it will elevate the team. So I don't really expect them to make any massive changes at the trade deadline. We're definitely not going to see any this week, of course. That time's come and gone. And they did pick up some guys off of practice squads. So yeah, that's kind of what I expect to continue. I know the stat, like every Super Bowl winner for the past 10 years has made a large offseason acquisition. A lot of those teams went into the season healthy. The Ravens did not, so I'm just not expecting to see something like that right now. Moving on to the Browns. The offense is kind of hard to project because they're starting Jameis instead of Deshaun. I do think they'll have more success offensively, but not 100% sure what that's going to look like. Their O-line has really struggled this year in terms of rushing attempts, pass protection, all of those things. I have attributed some of that to kind of a lack of respect and a lack of rallying behind Deshaun. So we'll see if they're able to rally behind Jameis. Jameis is a very solid backup quarterback. Talent is decent, but his main attribute is the ability to rally a locker room. He is very well liked. He is very well respected. So I think if anybody can do that, can pull the best out of this O-line, it will be Jameis. Not to say that DTR couldn't, but this is just who Jameis is. He's a unifier. He's a locker room guy. We see it everywhere he's been, all the time. Guys tend to be willing to just kind of follow Jameis anywhere. So I do think this could be the best we've seen of this O-line so far this year. Obviously, they've always been a good run team. That's kind of the story of the AFC North. Power running, good defense. The Browns are the epitome of that, just like the Steelers, just like the Ravens. The Bengals are just kind of there. Especially now that they have Nick Chubb back and he got live reps last week. It's not like this will be his first game. It kind of felt like last week he was on a snap count. I don't think he will be this week. He's another one, be able to kind of get the O-line going, make sure that they're aware he needs very specific blocking packages. He needs that protection. He needs those blocks to be made. I just do. I don't think we're going to get the same O-line we've gotten in the past couple of weeks. Not to say that that's what it'll look like all year. At the end of the day, any unit and any player can kind of fool the world for a game or even a couple of games. That's why you see teams elevate themselves after firings, after injuries, after trades. That's just kind of what they do. So I do think there's potential. We're just going to get the best version of this O-line this week. Don't know if that's who they'll be moving forward, but it's who they'll be at least for now. And then obviously they're playing the Ravens. They want to prove that they can do what the Ravens do, but better. They can run the ball better. They can pass the ball better. They can defend better. They can get after the quarterback better. That's kind of how division matchups work. So definitely going to be a tough game in that regard. We did see Jameis a bit last week when they played Cleveland. The biggest takeaway I had from that is while DTR was in, Judy was clearly upset and frustrated with lack of targets. We saw him throw his helmet on the sideline. And then when Jameis came in, he kind of force-fed Judy. Now that Amari Cooper is on the Bills, Judy is far and away their best pass catcher. I think we're going to see something similar. I'm not saying he'll be force-fed, but he will be their number one target. He will be Jameis's number one guy. So the pass defense for the Ravens is really going to have to step up in that regard. There is a chance, because Jameis is who he is, we'll see the force feed. If that's the case, looking more for turnovers. And when you force feed a guy, you tend to see a less effective offense. When the big plays happen, it's great, but it's hard to move the ball consistently. So I do think there's concern that way. But Jameis does have a quarterback IQ, so we'll see kind of how they do. I do expect Judy to be their number one target. Judy and Chubb to kind of be running this offense this week. Stefanski's a great offensive coach. I think he's been very limited the past couple of years with Deshaun. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the play calling changes, or if it changes. Are they able to keep the same offense they were running with Deshaun, or does he have to make changes to account for Jameis? Jameis and Deshaun really aren't that different. Deshaun's a little bit more mobile, but because Jameis is like a team guy, he's always been one of, I'll do whatever the team needs. So he's not really a fight for the extra yard like Baker is, but if he has to get out of the pocket and take a couple, he will. They have kind of a similar arm talent. They have similar arm strengths. I think Deshaun Watson's deep ball is a little bit better, but as a general rule, they're not that much different in terms of play style. So we'll see how the playbook changes for Jameis versus Deshaun. I think there's a chance he opens it up a little better, but we'll see. Like I said, Jameis he's a good quarterback, but he's a backup for a reason. And he's always been a backup for a reason. He's liked in locker rooms. He has a good football IQ, and he can definitely come in and win you a couple of games. He's never been the guy that can take a team well into the playoffs, and he's never been really a guy that can overcome lack of talent. It's not meant to be a knock on him. It's just kind of the truth of it. So if Judy can't get going or Chubb can't get going, Jameis is going to have a rough day. He needs those playmakers to be operating at the highest of levels. Judy is kind of a vocal guy. He likes the ball, he wants the ball, and he wants to be a big part of the reason the team wins. So we'll see how that relationship develops next week. And through this week of practice is just getting him on a normal amount of targets going to be enough. Just what does that look like, especially now that you're not really splitting with Amari. So we'll see. Definitely a chance they play really well. Definitely a chance it kind of falls apart in front of us, I think. I would say 60-40, it's going to go well. Defensively for the Browns, name of the game is Myles Garrett. He is an elite pass rusher. He's been pretty quiet this year. We haven't seen him put up quite the numbers he usually does. We haven't seen him put up quite the sacks he usually does. But he loves feasting on quarterbacks. And he loves even more feasting on quarterbacks in the AFC North. It took him a long time to get a sack on Lamar. He finally got one, and now that's his only goal. That's his only mission. He really couldn't give a rat's ass about anything else, which is fine. That's what elite pass rushers do. If they can minimize him, I'm not overwhelmingly worried about the rest of the defense. They're ranked 27th in points per game, 25th in pass yards, 24th in rush yards. The defense for the Browns has not been operating at a high level. Now, I will attribute some of that to the offense has been terrible. And when an offense is terrible, the defense is on the field a lot. They get tired more easily. They get run down. They get injured more. There are a lot of factors that go into that, but this defense just is not operating at the level we're used to seeing from the Browns. So I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park. Obviously, it's a division game. Division games are always tough. Defenses always bring their best. I do think there's potential underestimating Lamar and Henry right now. A lot of the media and a lot of post-practice interviews have been, oh, well, we have the key to stopping Henry. Well, we have the key to stopping Lamar. Bitch, there are 32 teams in the NFL and almost nobody has success with that. So good luck. But, it's a division game. I'm not going to underestimate them just because they haven't been playing well or just because they have a losing record. And I think more importantly, the Ravens won't. Very rarely do the Ravens go into a game going, oh, we have this locked up. More often than not, the games they kind of think they have locked up, they put more time, more effort into. They're not big on complacency. And I do think both sides of the ball are trying to prove a point. But that's the same for the Browns. They're trying to prove they do everything better. They stop the run better. They can stop Lamar. They can stop Henry. They can stop the pass. Everyone's game plan is make Lamar one-dimensional. It hasn't worked for anybody else. So we'll see kind of what their goal is. Is it contain the run or is it defend the pass? And how that works. I do want to talk their special teams always kind of plays at an elite level. They average a blocked field goal. I think it's once a game, once every other. They obviously had the one last year against the Ravens. That's something they take a lot of pride in. Is their ability to block kicks and be effective in the punt game. So I definitely think that's something to keep an eye on. It also kind of brings back the onside kick. Their special teams operates at a really high level, so if they're put in that position, I don't expect to see no disruptions in that regard. As for things I'm just looking to see from both teams, I'm hoping to see fewer penalties on both sides of the ball for the Ravens. Offensively, defensively, they're the most penalized team in the NFL right now. Through 7 weeks, they've got to get that cleaned up. They've got to get the pre-snap penalties taken care of. Defensively, pass interferences and holdings, they got to get that taken care of. Roquan wasn't flagged for the hip drop tackle. He didn't confirm if he'd been fined for it. He wouldn't answer that. He said it wasn't the time to talk about it. I don't really know what to do with that information. Because it wasn't flagged on the field, I'm less convinced. I haven't gone back and watched it, though. But just getting both units and the whole team to dampen the penalties, that's really all I want to see. If you lose a close game, that's okay. It's about how you play. And they got to get those things cleaned up. Obviously, I want everyone to stay healthy. Division games tend to be really tough, really physical, especially in the AFC North. That's what they've built their brands on. It's physicality. With Myles Garrett, with TJ Watt, with the pass rushers the Ravens have had throughout the years, it's a physical game. I'd like everyone to stay as healthy as possible. I talked in the podcast week, I thought Lamar took quite a few chances. I'd like to see a little less of that. I'm not saying don't run, but we don't need to block for Derrick Henry. The hits to the head, just making sure we're putting ourselves in a position to protect ourselves better. Kind of what I'm looking for. I do want to continue kind of the giveaway streak. I'd like to see at least one or two, whether it's an interception, forced fumble. I just want to see that continue to ramp up and stay elevated. They've been doing really well in that regard. Let's keep it going. And then, of course, improvement on the communication sides for the defense. You're not going to stop every play. You're not going to stop every pass or every run. I don't want to see busted coverage. And I don't want to see the offense snap the ball while the defense is still trying to get lined up. That's completely unacceptable. It's completely unnecessary. Get lined up. Get the play call in. Get where you need to be. Know where everyone's going to be. So seeing issues like that go away. I don't expect them to play a perfect game. I don't expect it to be a shutout, as nice as that would be. That's unrealistic. You're playing an NFL team. They're going to score. They're trying just as hard. But fix the communication problems. As for the Browns, I want to see what this offense is going to look like without Deshaun. It is kind of hard. I don't know what their plan is going to be moving forward. Last year we saw them go from DTR to Flacco. I don't know if the intention or the plan will be to use DTR moving forward. It's just a health situation. Or if based off his success, they'll stick with Jameis. Obviously, this is another matchup the Ravens will have again. They'll clearly play in Baltimore, and that's a different atmosphere. Last year, they did split. Each team wanted home. I'd like to see the Ravens sweep it this year, especially because I expect them to sweep the Bengals. If they can sweep the Browns, then the real competition is going to be the Steelers. That's the one the Ravens, unfortunately, historically struggle against. So if they can sweep the other two, I think that'll put them in the best position possible to win the AFC North. But it's a division game. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a dogfight. You're in the dog pound. That's how it works. That's the name of the game. So I don't expect it to come easy. I hope we fix some of the problems we've had. Even if they lose, but I see improvement in those areas, I will feel more confident. If they win, and it looks like it did against Tampa, I have the same concerns I have now, which is the defensive communication, the penalties. Those things aren't going to fly in the playoffs. They're not going to fly against the Chiefs. And they're not going to fly against the Steelers. So I just want to see those things get cleaned up. Obviously, I would prefer a win, but I would prefer over everything to see those problems get corrected. As for the score, I am projecting a high score for the Ravens. I am going to go 38-21. This is based off of what the Ravens have done offensively this year. It's also based off of the Browns' current defensive rankings. Like I said, I do think there's a chance they play better if they don't have to be on the field as much. And with Jameis, that's a very real possibility. With Nick Chubb back, very real possibility. But I am going to go high scoring. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be a dogfight. But I do think the Ravens will win and win handedly. I'm also predicating on the Ravens are going to fix those fourth quarter problems. So yeah, I think that will wrap it up for this week. I will try to tweet out. Unfortunately, this game happens while I'm at work. So I have to watch the replay to do the podcast. But we'll see what I can do, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If this is my first game preview week, you guys talk to me. If you have notes, if you have things you'd like me to say or talk about or mention or whatever, comment. And I promise we're going to get those clips up and rolling. I'm also hoping to do like a blooper reel. We'll see. The kids in school right now, that takes priority. So we'll see what we can get rolled out for you guys. But hopefully you enjoyed this first week of the single game preview. Go Ravens. Bye.